Good morning. It is 10:01 a.m. on Saturday, September 17th, 2016. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. So, uh, there is a Facebook group for, it's kind of just like writers community that I belong to, that someone asked an interesting question, and I've been just turning it over in my head, and that was, um, can anybody think of examples where you have a story that starts as sort of a standard hero's journey type of tale, but over the course of the journey, it gets corrupted and you end up, um, the hero becomes the villain after all. And I thought of a couple of examples that seemed close, but both of them were video games. And then even some of the other examples that I could think of where, it may not fit quite so easily, that whole hero's journey becomes corrupted sort of thing, but, um, uh, just other examples of the initial hero of the story becoming the villain by the end. And I was thinking just most of the examples I could think of were video games and not movies or TV or books. And I was thinking about that and wondering if it's because, to be sure, I think it would be an upsetting turn of events potentially to have, because I guess what I'm getting at is that if the story is placing, I don't know, I think maybe, okay. The problem is I keep trying to put together some theory for this and then thinking of why that doesn't make sense. That's why I keep hesitating here. So I'm not really sure why it is, because some of my initial thoughts were just related around player agency. And it's one thing if like the story is less upsetting, it feels like less of a betrayal to the audience if the audience has felt like they got to make that choice because that's the way they wanted to play. But there are some games like the two big examples I could think of were Shadow of the Colossus and The Last of Us, and so some spoilers for both of those games, just heads up. So I would turn this off if you don't want to be spoiled about those. The Last of Us is a little bit different because the story is very complex. It has lots of complex characters and moral gray areas. But short version is that this man and this girl who have been traveling together and have formed kind of a surrogate father-daughter relationship, even though they're not related by blood. By the end, it becomes apparent that the girl may have to sacrifice herself to basically save the world, potentially. Like there's some complexity there, but if we can frame it in those terms, is that she might be willing to do that. But the man that she's been traveling with basically makes the decision for her that he won't let that happen. He decides that her safety is more important to him than any potential benefit to the world that could be potentially gained from her sacrifice. So basically, without consulting her or even being honest with her after the fact, he decides to save her at the expense of many other good people. So, and like that's another one where you could there's some room for debate, but it seemed close just because the idea that this virtue of caring for another person could be twisted in that way. And then the other one that's a more kind of a prime example is Shadow of the Colossus, where the premise is that we've got this hero who, and the love of his life has died, and he's told that he can bring her back if he slays these 12 enormous monsters that roam the countryside. And so he goes out to do that, but as he progresses through killing them all, it becomes more and more clear that these monsters are not like rampaging beasts that are destroying stuff. They're innocent and possibly even benevolent creatures that really just want to be left alone. They're not hurting anybody. And we've got this hero now who is now hunting them down, chasing them, and then killing them for his own reasons. And so basically, it's increasingly clear that he is not doing the world any good, but he continues through anyway. And by the time he kills them all, and the girl wakes up, she's horrified at what he's done and what he's become in the interest of trying to save her. And so those were the two examples that I could think of. Can you guys think of others? Can you help me puzzle out why it is that it might be that video games are more prone to have the hero become the bad guy than in other types of fiction, or am I mistaken about that pattern? Anyway, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow for 5 more minutes.